Introduction to Week 1. Mathematics is the language of science and engineering. It provides the tools to describe, analyse and model engineering and scientific systems. It allows scientists and engineers to communicate their ideas and their findings to others in precise and concise ways. If you decide to study for a degree in science or engineering, you will find that mathematical skills are vital for success. But perhaps you haven't studied any mathematics for a long time. Perhaps you have studied it recently, but feel you never really mastered the basics. Perhaps you lack confidence. Perhaps you simply need a refresher. The purpose of this course is to begin to consolidate those basic mathematical foundations which will be vital for success. In this first week, we won't actually be doing any calculations. Perhaps that will surprise you. What we are going to do is to introduce some mathematical ideas informally. The title of this course is Getting a Grip on Mathematical Symbolism. So what does this mean in the context of this course? Well, a symbol is something which stands for or represents something else. We use mathematical symbols, usually letters of the English or Greek alphabets, to represent physical quantities. Often these quantities are variables. These are physical quantities that can vary or change. Within an engineering or scientific system, there are often many such variables. For example, the temperature and pressure in a chemical reaction vessel. Scientists and engineers want to know how one variable changes in response to changes in another. So, for example, how will the pressure in a reaction vessel change as the temperature changes? It is often helpful to have a pictorial representation of relationships between variables like these, because this then enables us to visualize how changing one variable affects another. A graph is a special sort of picture or diagram which can be used to represent relationships between variables, and so is another form of mathematical symbolism. In many common applications, the graphs or pictures take the form of straight lines joining or passing through points. In this first week, we want you to start to think about what we mean by points, lines, straight lines, and curves. We want you to get used to describing the characteristics or properties of points, lines, and curves. When we start to think mathematically and use mathematics in scientific and engineering applications, there are conventions in use for naming particular physical quantities and the units in which they are measured. Of course, this is true in any field of activity. We need to familiarise ourselves with the terminology used in the professions of science and engineering. So later in this week, we will preview some of the words that we will be using to describe straight lines and curves, and we shall look at some commonly used units of measurement. By the end of the course, you will be familiar with these aspects of mathematical symbolism and be well prepared to take your studies forward. You will need to plot some graphs. To help you to do this, you can print off graph paper from the link provided. You will also need a ruler, pencil or pen, and you may find a calculator helpful though not essential. Coloured pens or pencils may help you to visualise some of the points and lines that you are going to draw. Upon completion of this week's material, you will be aware that scientists and engineers are interested in quantities which can vary. We call these variables, and that we use letters or other symbols to represent these variables. You will be aware that graphs are used to show pictorially how one variable is related to another. You will have started to think mathematically about points, lines, curves, and graphs. You will be able to describe some of the properties of lines and curves, which we will formalize mathematically later in the course. You will be aware of some conventions regarding the units in which common physical quantities are measured, and you will be aware of some of the terminology used by scientific and engineering professionals when they discuss graphs of lines and curves.